Hello, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book rant. Today I'm going to be covering this book, The 9-Mile Wolves. I have covered other books written by Rick Bass, including Wild to the Heart and The Lost Grizzlies. This book is similar to those. In The Lost Grizzlies, Rick Bass was interested in finding grizzly bears in southern Colorado and exploring their relationship with their surroundings. In this book, Rick Bass covers the wolf reintroduction and specifically one pack. The Pleasant Valley pack and the 9-Mile pack kind of come from the same stock. In fact, the same female. Now, do note that this book does still use some more outdated wolf-based terminology, such as the alpha male and female. Really, what that means is the mother of the family and the father of the family, and then a few related family members that are doing their things within that community. Not every wolf ends up having pups of its own, but they do help raise those pups. In a way, they embody that phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. Not every member of that village needs to have kids, so long as they are helping raise them. These packs are shown on the last pages of the book, seen here. On the one page, it is Pleasant Valley Pack, 1989, with the female being Marion Wolf. In 1990, the 9-Mile Pack is also led by Marion Wolf after she fled to the 9-Mile Valley and met a gray male. She disappeared in June 1990. Her radio collar is retrieved from the 9-Mile River. Following that, some of her children comprise the 9-Mile Pack in 1991 and 1992. The book opens similarly to other Rick Bass writing. Chapter 1 reads, "They say not to anthropomorphize, not to think of them as having feelings, not to think of them as being able to think. But late at night I like to imagine that they are killing, that another deer has gone down in a tangle of legs tackled in deep snow, and that once again the wolves are feeding, that they have saved themselves once again, that the deer or moose calf or young dumb elk is still warm, steam rising from the belly as that part which contains the entrails is opened first, is now dead or dying. They eat everything when they kill, even the snow that soaks up the blood. I can say what I want to say. I gave up my science badge a long time ago. I've interviewed maybe 100 people for or against wolves. The ones who are for wolves, they have an agenda. Wilderness and freedom for predators, for prey, for everything. Those who are against wolves have an agenda. They've got vested financial interests. It's about money. More and more money for them. They perceive the wolves to be an obstacle to frictionless cash flow. The story's so rich, it can begin anywhere. I can start with prey, which is what controls wolf numbers, not the other way around. Or with history, which is rich in sin, cruelty, and sensationalism, poisonings, maimings, torture. You can start with biology or politics, or you can start with family, with loyalty, and even with the mystic tinged edges of fate, which is where I choose to begin. It's all going to come together anyway. It has to. We are all following the wolf. To pretend anything else, to pretend that we are protecting the wolf, for instance, or managing him, is nonsense of the kind of immense proportions of which only our species is capable. We are following the wolf. He's returning to Montana after 60 years. From there, he goes on to describe what parts of the West have wolf populations. Canada, he says, still has 50,000 wolves. But in Idaho and in the northwestern part of the country, Glacier National Park has some wolves, but they rarely survive a move south. So the story contextualizes the plight of wolves in the West, and it also compares wolf reintroduction to other regions trying to reintroduce wolves. Chapter 7, for example, opens with the line, "Similar to the Montana story of wolves is Mexico's. Because there may be only 10 or 15 wild wolves left in all of Mexico, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has hired Roy McBride to help live trap Mexican wolves for breeding purposes and genetic preservation, and for possible reintroduction if a site can ever be found that is both a biological as well as a political fit." This book was copyright in 1992, and this copy was printed in August 1993. That's been 30 years of wolf reintroduction efforts, and the next line in Chapter 7 is outdated now. The following line is, "To date, none has been discovered." At some point in time in the last 30 years, wolves were reintroduced to New Mexico, in the western part of the state where, for the most part, there's very few humans and a lot of cattle, a lot of deer, a lot of elk, a lot of prey for those wolves. The population there is still low, but the wilderness is getting more and more champions out there because jaguars are moving up from Mexico into the very southern reaches of the United States, including Arizona and New Mexico. And so with that in mind, he contextualizes a lot of the efforts to reintroduce wolves in the south part of the country and compares that to wolf reintroduction in the north part of the country. Roy McBride is a legendary trapper within the community of preservation and conservationists. He is known for mountain lions, wolves, and all manner of predators in the southern part of the United States of America. Eventually, the wolves that are being followed in this narrative are killed by trappers, killed by hunters, killed by ranchers. They leave the community, their valley, for better prey. And as I mentioned in the beginning, based off of that family tree, the mother of these packs does end up being killed. When wolves are killed, especially when the parent wolves and adult wolves in a pack are killed, something important happens. Wolves learn how to hunt from their adults, their parents. And when that teacher isn't there, they still survive, but they eat easy prey that doesn't fight back. And we as humans have domesticated cattle to the point where they do not defend themselves or really protect themselves as well as deer, elk, and bison do, and moose. So when you have adults that know how to hunt and have a favored prey, they teach their young how to hunt those, whether it's elk, moose, deer, bison, sheep, whatever. But when those parents and those teachers die, the young wolves turn to whatever they can catch, and that means, oftentimes, livestock, cattle, and sheep. And that is where the intersection of wolves and ranchers meets. For the most part, the presence of wolves in a valley where sheep and cattle are ranched doesn't mean much. There's still plenty of elk, plenty of deer, plenty of moose, and maybe, depending on the area, a couple bison. A lot of ranchers will shoot wolves on sight for simply the fear that that wolf will kill their livestock. And when you kill the adult, the young have nothing they can easily catch and eat except for livestock. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It gets to the point where, on page 107, the secretary-treasurer of the 9-Mile Livestock Association, Bob Demmons, wrote a letter after that asking other ranchers in the 9 Mile not to dump their cattle anymore. but to instead bury them deep or take them to the rendering plant. And the last few chapters of this book is Rick Bass going out, following one of these research teams and trying to find these wolves. It doesn't end as well as he'd like it to, but it is still a solemn experience for Rick Bass. Near the end of the book, Rick Bass has this to say. In late October of 1991, as I was finishing this book, a pack of 3 to 5 wolves showed up in my own valley, near a lake, watching the lake during the first year's snow, as if waiting for it to freeze, as if waiting for when they could chase deer out across the ice, where the deer would slip and fall and could be caught. I've been seeing these wolves sign in that area for 3 years, and now we seem to be making it official. It's confirmed, which brings me mixed feelings, as if God himself were to reveal himself, not his work, but his self. And there's a new pack, also of about 5 members, back in Marion, where it all began. Ed Bangs says that it's maybe because of the continued presence of wolves in that area. They're good at finding each other. And then in February of 1992, a new pack north of Marion, and 2 wolves, big ones, in Wyoming, near Cody. Wolves along the Absaroka Range. Wolves below the Big Mountain Ski Resort, too, just north of Whitefish. Wolves in the mountains outside of Kalispell. Why? I love it, but why? And the rest of it, this chapter, is kind of a dialogue between a couple people that he had been interviewing. So yeah, that is the Ninemile Wolves. It is following the reintroduction effort, and specifically wolves in the Marion Valley, and by looking at the greater scope of wolf population in the United States of America and Mexico during this time. It's no longer a contemporary book. It is at least 30 years old, and a lot has changed since then. But the book itself is amazing, and it's short. I paid $4 for this, and the book is only about 160 pages long. So that's about $1 per 40 pages, and it's a good deal. I like this book, and I think that a lot of other people would like it too if you see it at your local used bookstore. It's easily digestible, it's fun, it's something you can read and then put back into the system relatively easily. If that interests you, then pick this book up. My name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book rant.